What is up, guys? I am thrilled to bring you today's video where I will be making all of the engine performance upgrades available to this 2025 KTM 300 XCW. I recently uploaded my 25-hour review video on this bike where overall I have very high praise for the machine, but there are a couple little things that I nitpicked in that video, and the comment section was overwhelming with suggestions to try to remedy those issues. So let's go through a brief synopsis of each of the parts I plan to test, and then we'll get to installing them one by one. My plan is to ride the bike after making each individual change so that I can test and feel which upgrades have the biggest impact. So I've got a plethora of parts here from a few great companies. I have a billet cylinder head from Phathead Racing with both stock and high compression domes, made in the USA with offerings for countless two-stroke models. From Slavens Racing, I have quite a few performance parts. I have the TSP cylinder head with their high compression dome, so we will have a little battle of the cylinder heads and see how they each perform. A Powervalve cover, which you would expect to be a bling part, but is actually supposed to result in power gains in the low and mid range. And I also have the TSP ECU Reflash Module, which has been the most highly commented upgrade you guys have suggested I make, which will tune the stock ECU with a performance-based map. I have a set of V-Force 4X reeds, which claim power gains everywhere in the RPM range. And lastly, from Slavens Racing, I have the oil injection delete kit. I will go more in depth on why I want to delete oil injection, but it's partially related to this brand new 3.5 gallon tank from IMS that I'll be installing. The tank isn't exactly a performance mod, but it is a cool new solution to the 23 plus gen KTM fuel pump issue, so let's get to it. Now, before we fully jump into it, I cannot be wrenching on a dirty bike, so it's time to get this thing cleaned up with my brand new power washer from Giraffe Tools. I've been through 3 different power washers in the last 5 years and have struggled to find one that really makes my life easy. This Grand Falls power washer from Giraffe Tools really simplifies my whole experience washing bikes, which becomes important when you're doing it multiple times per week. It took me just a few minutes to install the wall mount bracket, where this power washer easily slides on and off so I can put it away for winter but reinstall in just seconds. This power washer came with everything I needed, including a short hose to connect to my water spigot, and I also like that it has a neat place to tuck in the wand and a soap canister. The 100-foot retractable hose is flexible and the retract system works quite smoothly. Instead of dragging my power washer around with a 15-foot hose when I want to wash other things, such as my truck, this power washer stays wall mounted and I have 100 feet of hose to work with. It comes with 4 different nozzles, and I find the 40-degree nozzle is most effective and safest for dirt bikes as it disperses that pressure and doesn't feel like you're just blasting components. Top it off with a 2-year warranty. If I would have bought one of these for $400 5 years ago instead of continually buying the cheapest power washer I can find and waiting for something to inevitably fail, I probably would have ended up saving myself time and money in the long run. Easy to install and easy to use. If you are in need of a new power washer, check out the Grand Falls pressure washer from Giraffe Tools, link down below, and let's dive in to this KTM 300. Thank you to Giraffe Tools for sponsoring this video. All right, performance upgrade number 1, the 2-stroke performance ECU Reflash Module, available from Slavens Racing. Like I said, many of you in the comments spoke very highly of this mod. What's interesting is TSP doesn't really directly claim what gains you get with this in the product description. It simply says, comes with a TSP tuned map. The process of downloading a map to your ECU is fairly straightforward, although I did have some issues with their software connecting on my desktop and had to move to my laptop. And then when connecting the unit to the bike and connecting to Wi-Fi, my home network would not work. Once it failed, and then a second time, I left it thinking for about 8 minutes before I ended up connecting to my iPhone hotspot instead. That worked, and then from there, it only took about 30 seconds to get the map downloaded to the ECU. I then followed their instructions to reset my TPS to 0.4 volts and reset the electronic power valve, and the bike was ready to test. One thing I did not realize about the ERM is that it is locked to your bike, which means you cannot buy one of these and then just share the tune with your buddies, so that is worth keeping in mind. So while my install procedure didn't go completely smoothly, I loaded up the bike, excited to see what the hype around this unit is all about.
Alright guys, so if you remember from the 25-hour review, my 2 complaints were the bike has a tendency to load up when you lug it for too long, and then you gotta wring it out to clear it out to get any sort of crispness back in the power, and I said I didn't love the mid-range. feel like the mid-range is kind of flat, and I felt like I ended up just lugging it more because I didn't like the feel of the bike in the mid-range. It just wasn't that crispy. And I will say, I only have a couple minutes on this tour so far, but this is a completely different motorcycle. I mean, this has that fire-breathing XC feel now. This thing absolutely moves. Tenfold. I mean, this thing, like I said, the XCW is so known to be so smooth and luggable. Yet to determine if I've lost anything in the bottom end, but I highly doubt it based on what everyone else has said and suggested in comments. My God, dude. This bike absolutely freaking cold now. Wow, wow. I mean, actually, the top end just actually screams now. I mean, I can't believe how much faster this bike is after that update. The software issues I dealt with and that like hour of frustration, well worth it. Way better top end. Explosive, much bigger hit, way more fun. I want to see if I can get the bike to load up at all. Alright, been lugging this thing for quite a while now. Slap a couple downshifts around this corner here and see how the power feels. Straight into perfect crispness, man. Fuse, baby. This RPM is where I didn't love the bike, and boy is it nice now. I mean, really impressive. Coming in hot. Yeah, those little hesitations it had are gone. This is by far the most fun I've actually had going fast on this bike. It just freaking came alive, dude.
Initial impressions of this: huge top end gains, smoother everywhere, no sacrifice of bottom end. I haven't been able to get the bike on anything technical. This is just a fast 2-track trail, but I have tested the luggability just as good, if not better than before, and improvements everywhere else up high. Really impressed right now. I brought the bike home after performance mod test ride number 1. Absolutely thrilled with this machine. I washed under the tank area with my new Giraffe Tools pressure washer in preparation for a cylinder head install. While I get the bike ready for a cylinder head to test, I want to note I realized to truly scientifically test these changes, I would be undoing each prior change before testing another one, but unfortunately I just don't have that kind of time. That said, I still think doing the mods one at a time will give me really great insight as to which mods impact the bike in different ways. Note, I'm also doing this testing on a pretty fast 2-track loop close to my house. This gives a good insight into power everywhere, but until I get back into proper hard enduro, I won't really be able to talk about those fine details of the bottom end and traction. So the plan is, after the final mod has been made, I will take the bike on some hard enduro to do one final assessment of each of these changes. Also, can someone in the comments tell me, do you have to remove shrouds on these bikes to remove the tank? I don't really see a way around it, but it is a little annoying as previous gen KTMs did not require the shrouds to come off. Anyway, the first head I'm going to test is the TSP head with a high compression dome. First, let's take a quick look at the difference between the Phathead, stock, and TSP heads. The primary difference with the Phathead is how the domes sit in the cylinder head. With the OEM and TSP designs, this big O-ring sits directly up against the head to seal, whereas the Phathead has an O-ring laid into the dome that then seals on this vertical surface of the cylinder head. According to Luke at Phathead, with the OEM design, the coolant can't get as close to the spark plug, and that pressure point can cause warpage under very high stress or high heat scenarios. So that is the thought process. Obviously, in general, seeing heads fail is a pretty rare occurrence, but from an engineering perspective, that is why the Phathead is designed the way it is. Now, if we take a look at the domes, you can see the OEM dome has a bit of a bevel before dropping into that full dome shape, whereas the high comp domes from both Phathead and TSP are very similar, with no bevel and instead a direct drop into that dome shape. I'm not going to pretend I know exactly how these high compression heads work, but the shape difference is certainly distinct. While the Phathead and TSP high comp domes are similar, they are not exactly the same, so it'll be very interesting to test both. Head installed, let's go test this thing.
We're a few minutes in on performance test number 2. One thing I did not like about this motorcycle at first, with no updates, was in the RPMs, very hard to get the front wheel off the ground, like really required some precision clutching. And now, just a little clutch bump pretty much anywhere in the RPMs, and that front wheel's off the ground. So overall, high speed, oh, hi there. Right, so overall, becoming an absolute high speed weapon. This thing is even more alive, for sure. Dude. Shout out Redline Sports, where I bought this thing brand new, first ever brand new dirt bike. If you find yourself in Butte, Montana, go check them out. But my buddy Tell bought the exact same bike that does not yet have any engine performance mods. So maybe we'll get these out together and be able to compare back to back bone stock versus all of the performance mods.
I don't know that there's a lot more to say about this head other than it pulls a little harder everywhere. But in terms of turning this thing into an XC weapon, the ERM and the head, unbelievable. If I were to just pick one, it would be the ERM. The ERM was a bigger jump than what the head has done, but the head's noticeable. Really impressive. Got to get in a hard enduro to see if this is a good change for nasty stuff or not. For fast stuff, unreal. This bike is awake. From that second test ride, I was overall very happy with the performance of that TSP cylinder head, but I was not yet ready to move to the Phathead. I want to do a little more testing with the TSP head and get on some hard enduro to see how the bottom end has been impacted. But in the meantime, a few more changes are in order. I mentioned earlier I would be removing the oil injection system. Deleting oil injection functionality without actually deleting the system is as simple as plugging an empty connector into the oil pump. But I'm going to be actually deleting the injection system. Injection deletion is not a performance upgrade per se, but it is added peace of mind. It is one less thing that can fail, and from my research, there's not a downside to a transition to mixed fuel. The 300XC uses Premix, so there's no reason the XCW should not be able to as well. A driving factor in this change is the addition of a large fuel tank from IMS. Their new 3.5 gallon tank goes over where the oil filler cap sits on the frame. IMS has a solution for this where you replace that cap with a spot to inject oil using a syringe, but it seems to make the most sense and make my life easier just to delete it. And while I'm at it, the OEM reed block is where the oil gets injected, so I'm swapping that reed block out for V-Force 4X reeds, also available from Slavens Racing. These reeds claim increased bottom and mid-range as well as a longer top-end pull. Now you might be wondering why I'm taking the bike halfway apart to do this, but you will realize when you see this oil tank come out of the frame why the subframe needs to be raised and the rear shock needs to be removed. With the injection system deleted, I was able to swap out that stock reed cage for the new V-Force reeds, which also gave me a quick opportunity to look inside my cylinder where everything looks to be in great shape, and then it was time to utilize this injection delete kit from Slavens. It includes a nice cover that sits in the hole in the frame snugly, and then an electrical connector that you'll plug into the oil pump, and that tricks the ECU into being okay with the oil injection deleted. I zip tied that connector out of the way where the oil tank was mounted previously and then reassembled the bike to the point where it needs a fuel tank. Now there have been reports of oversized fuel tanks not picking up all of the fuel for 23 plus gen KTMs due to the new fuel pump design. IMS is now offering some tanks with fitment for the new or old style fuel pump. Now this isn't a cheap solution as fuel pumps are about $300, but this guarantees pickup all the way to the bottom of the tank. If you remember the 2020 KTM 350 SXF I tore apart for the Panthera snow bike project, I robbed the fuel pump from that bike's tank to deal with at a later date. The pump itself was a very snug fit into the left side of the tank that required a little force, and then it took me about 15 minutes to actually align the pump at the bottom of the tank. But overall, relatively smooth install. I modified my radiator shroud so that it doesn't bulge up over the pump mounting location and reassembled the remainder of the bike from there. Everything aligns quite well with the new fuel tank, and reinstallation of both shrouds and the seat went smoothly. I added some premix to the tank using Motorex Crosspower 2T mixed at 60:1 with 91 octane ethanol-free premium fuel. Injectors connected, that's blocked off, reeds are installed, reeds are torqued, tanks connected, fuel pumps installed. Alright, oil injection has been deleted. We got premix in the tank, new fuel pump. Whoa. Take two. I didn't have the hose clamp on the fuel line tightened down enough the first time, but that was a quick solve, and I've now got a 25 300XCW running on premix. Now I know you guys have been staring at my dirty air filter, so I replaced that with a fresh one from No Toil, and it was time for a quick foot peg upgrade. The stock KTM pegs are actually pretty darn good, but the grip from these IMS Core Enduro pegs is incredible and their durability is phenomenal. Plus, they've got a lifetime warranty. So it's looking like the bike is ready to rock and roll for a third test, and lucky for me, we actually got some rain.
Today is the first day testing the big tank, the oil injection delete, and the V-Force 4X reeds. We'll get into some hard enduro and then some fast flow EXT. Test this thing out in all scenarios. Still every bit as luggable. Since the bike's a little more aggressive, it takes a little bit more thought of where you are in the RPMs because it revs out a little quicker, but it also seems like you can just keep it a gear higher almost always and it'll just keep pulling it. But I mean, she's just chooching along 1,000 RPM, no complaints. I mean, listen to this motorcycle. Barely even running, dude. Woo! You alright? Oh yeah. A little snow on the ground. Fall finally decided to arrive. Ooh, do we go straight up that? It looks like maybe doable. You been straight up that before?
I have no idea where I am, but I feel like you can ride up there.
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo.
Yeah!
Oh! Up is up. We've been riding for a pretty good amount of time now. I have not even thought about this IMS tank. The width of it or anything, even cornering, they did a good job with the design.
You're the only person that's like wrestled it back down that softly.
I don't know if I'd call that softly, Mikey.
It could have been so much worse.
Woo! This is a scary feature.
We took a quick snack break at the trucks with my premix system working flawlessly, so I took the opportunity to install this TSP Powervalve cover. Now they claim power gains in the low to mid range from 3 to 5,000 RPMs before the power valve opens. You can see compared to the OEM cover, it is not just a bling part like I said earlier. It is a significantly different shape with more volume. The Slavens website has a really interesting description about how this works along with the theory and testing behind it.
Alright, we got the TSP Powervalve cover installed. Starting on some fast trail. Right now, holy cow, this bike literally couldn't feel better than Phathead in terms of motor. So powerful everywhere.
To be honest, for the remainder of the day, we ended up riding fast single track, which was an absolute blast, but I didn't spend much time in the 3,000 to 5,000 RPM range. I decided I would come back the following day to ride hard enduro once again and try to determine if I could notice the impact from that Powervalve cover. That hard enduro did not go exactly to plan, resulting in one of my biggest crashes in recent history. So I'm going to show you just 20 uninterrupted seconds of this fast stuff so you can really hear how crisp this bike is right now, and then I will show you what happened the next day riding hard enduro.
Woo-hoo-hoo! Can't really park there. Holy that is freaking gnarly. Keep with it. You all right, dude? Hey, you all right? Yeah.
And I'm alive. That was one of the most violent, scary crashes I've had in a very long time. I'm lucky to come out of that with nothing more than an injured wrist. It's not broken. I got it x-rayed. The bike came out in one piece, just some new scratches on the silencer, but everything is ultimately okay. This means at least a little bit of time off the bike. I was planning to swap to that Phathead cylinder head tonight and do the testing on that head tomorrow, but I'll now be doing a part 2 on performance upgrades where we test out that Phathead cylinder head with the high compression dome, and I've got an OXA pipe on the way available from Crosslinked Components. I can't really say with the amount of hard enduro I was able to ride today if that TSP Powervalve cover had an impact. Of course, small impacts are harder to notice and easier to be affected by the placebo effect. What I will say is with these changes, my mid-range complaints are gone, the top end absolutely rips like an XC bike, and the bottom end feels slightly more aggressive, but I don't think more aggressive means less usable. It's still got that nice luggability, but is an easier, quicker transition into the power band than it used to be. I would say 80 to 90% of the improvements I noticed were related directly to that ERM, the reflash of this ECU. If I were to just pick one of these upgrades, it would definitely be that TSP ERM. The head did have even more top end gains after that. Links are down below to where you can buy each of the parts shown in this video. Big thank you to Slavens Racing, Phathead Racing, and IMS products. I really wanted to include the testing of that Phathead in this video, but now that just means there will be more videos on the way. There are a couple ways you can support my channel directly if you would like to. You can purchase merchandise available on my website, or if you're buying parts, tools, or accessories from Rocky Mountain, if you use my link down below, I earn a commission on your purchases. Thank you as always for taking the time to watch these videos and subscribe to the channel. I really hope you enjoyed. I'm sorry to cut this one short, but I'll see you guys soon with another one.